Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. In today's episode, we'll be breaking down the remainder of The Bear, this final season, season 5. This is 5 seasons, right, Sona?
I think that's right.
Joining me for the conversation is Sona.
Hi.
How have you guys continued to watch the World Cup? Is that enthusiasm building?
Well, as you know, I've been on a tear about ticket prices and how impossible it is to attend any sporting events or really just live events in general in the New York City area. We decided to just accept the reality we live in. And my husband and my son are currently at the France versus Sweden game.
Oh my God, how thrilling.
How expensive.
I don't know if you want to share how much that cost, but it must have been very expensive.
I don't feel comfortable sharing, but I will say we went into the 4 figures. Not far, but into the 4 figures.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So they better have fun. Dang it.
I'm just checking the score. It is a thrilling 0-0.
Well, the game just started 15 minutes ago in the game's defense, but I was laughing with some friends. I said, I know I can't control what my child's core memories are, but I really, really hope this is one of them.
This better stick. Yes, for sure. He is at least at the age where, for example, like my daughter, her grandparents really wanted to take her to Disney. So she went to Disney really young. And the first time, she's been there since, again. But she had like absolutely no recollection of it at all. And by the way, did not like being in the amusement park and just wanted to go back to the hotel and just be in the pool because it just does the pleasure of having a pool available to her all day long, just jumping in the pool, even into late in the night, which of course then they were all irritated because then she would like sleep in late and then they would get to the park the next day late. And of course she just slept in her stroller. She could care less about the park itself.
Aww.
It just goes to show that, you know what, sometimes you spend a lot of money for them to have an experience. And at least your son is definitely at an age where it'll be in his memory.
I think so. I hope so. Yeah, even if it's not one of those core memories, at least he will be able to recall being there. So
the World Cup in the US, he may not see that for quite some time.
Right, exactly. That was the reason that I think we just accepted that we needed to just go for it because it's not the type of thing you want to regret later.
True. Well, I do hope they enjoy it.
Me too.
Now, if the U.S. makes it further, you may have to buy another ticket. That one's going to be way more expensive.
Oh my gosh. I don't think we have that. I don't think we've got it like that.
That'll cost as much as a cheap sedan.
I have to say one thing that made it easier to accept is, we didn't get the Knicks playoff tickets. So
right.
It was kind of like the budget that would have gone towards the basketball tickets got added into the World Cup budget.
It's a good point. You know what? You saved in one place. So
yeah, like our flat out of pocket is probably what we had expected to spend to attend both events. And the first one didn't work out. So
what are your 4th of July plans? Are you going to try to see the fireworks and dodge the 100-degree weather? Or
I don't know. It does look like it's going to be oppressively hot, right?
Yes.
Dangerously hot.
Well, by the time the fireworks happen, in Manhattan, I can only imagine how hot it'll be on the street if you're trying to be among the crowds. But it's supposed to drop into the 90s. But in New York, my experience, and can even say more so, my experience is if the city is really hot during the day, that even when the temperature starts to drop, like being close to, street level is still so hot, even after the sunset.
And with so many people. And
yes.
It's not the type of thing you can say, oh, we'll show up right before it starts.
Right.
You've got to get your spot.
Yep.
So it's not looking good for the fireworks. I will say in the past, we live by the river and there are times that the barges are so far uptown that we can just walk out our front door and see them. But this is not one of those years.
Yeah, it depends on where they station. So it's going to be tough. You'll be watching it on TV with most of the Americans.
Seems that way, yes. And I'll be able to probably hear it live and on the television.
Hear it through the windows,
Yeah.
Exactly. couple of things on the show, I should say, about the podcast. Later this week, I'll be discussing the finale of The Agency with Darren. Well, not the finale, but the rest of the episodes, which were available as a binge. Very
Is that what you're doing for the 4th of July? I didn't get a chance to ask you.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, to be honest. We were supposed to go to Vermont, and I think they're still going to go, my wife and my daughter. I'm probably going to stay. There's not air conditioning at the house. It's also going to be very hot up there. I will be incredibly uncomfortable. We have family coming to the house that has a dog. We'd have to bring the cat with us. And I'm like, okay, we have the cat in a new house. It's 110 degrees upstairs. We're going to lock the cat in there, and it's to avoid the dog, and we're going to be sleeping. And I'm just like, I don't know if adding a cat and me to this logistics is going to make things better. So I think it's just going to be my wife and daughter. So I will probably be chilling and watching on TV all by myself, and probably binging another TV show or something. Always one of my favorite activities. And of course, we will, Sona and I will be regrouping on Friday, possibly, or thereabouts, to discuss the next 2 episodes of Cape Fear. Did you, by chance, Sona, watch last week's Cape Fear?
Come on now. I've been spending all my time watching The Bear.
This is true. You barely struggled to finish The Bear on time. That's a good point. Yeah, I was just curious, but very curious to get your take on that. But yeah, I
will catch up.
We'll have that conversation later this week, and we'll catch up, obviously, the episode we missed last week, plus this current week's episode. And then we have like 3 episodes more to go, so we're getting closer to the end after that. And yeah, I'll preview what we might be covering at the end of the month, which has not officially been announced yet, but I think I know what it's going to be. So anyway, I'll just keep things vague for now until we figure that out. All right, Sona. So we left off with episode 4. I had thought the first 3 episodes were kind of too procedural for me, and it kind of felt odd, given it was the final season of the show. Episode 4, I thought a very rich experience, and seeing Carmy, who's been intentionally very sidelined in those first 3 episodes, coming to the fore a little bit more, and having all these kind of, in many ways, just apologizing to the different members of the team. Of course, he has, at least at that moment, stated that he's going to leave food behind forever, and have a question as to whether that's the case or not, in your opinion. And that all leads up to this episode 5. It's called Caramel. What did you think about this? Since it's called Caramel, I don't even know where this happens in this batch of episodes, but I'll bring it up now. What did you think about this dessert that includes the candle with the caramel inside of it? What did you think about that?
I think I would be really floored if I was eating something and they said, oh, wait, here's the sauce, and opened up the candle. I think I would be really impressed by that and think it's super cool. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was a little kind of like, I'm not sure it would have worked exactly as they expected, but it certainly is like, magic trick.
It feels a little fraught. Yeah. Like,
yes.
Like what if the candle melts down too far and then the caramel starts
the wick
going?
Falls in there. Yeah.
And you wonder too, if like when you're eating, you're thinking, what is that sweet buttery smell?
Right.
Like, why can't I get that smell out of my nose while I'm eating something savory?
I guess if they have like cut the candle, like imagine it's just like a full candle basically stacked on another candle, then it's unlikely it's going to melt through all the way.
Okay,
and I don't know if it seems like they made it look like they were carving out the other candle.
That's what I thought had happened, yes.
But I think effectively it's what I just described. Imagine you have like 2 half candles and you scoop one out and you stack the other one on top. It's probably not going to melt.
That's a little less worrisome. I also, on the subject of the dessert, felt the whole brioche situation. I think I'm jumping ahead now. It seemed a little bit over the top. From what I can tell, it was just a few crumbs of brioche. I don't think it was that integral as they made it seem.
It was pretty amazing that they are like so. Yeah, there's a few times in this episode where they're trying to make this like this is Mission Impossible. We have to be perfect today. And even how, we're jumping way ahead, but we might as well talk about the whole thing as a batch anyway, since we've arrived at the end anyway. But it's just pretty hilarious to me that it's just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Even when it's just like, we're one dessert short.
Yeah.
Of the whole, like we have overbooked. That's like kind of the context to all of this. For some reason, the system is completely overbooked. Not really well explained, but for whatever reason, They have like way overbooked. Richie hasn't canceled anybody. They have to keep like cutting the protein smaller and smaller and coming up with alternatives and doing all these alternate solutions the whole entire time through. And they're like, we're on our last table. Oh my God, the last dessert. I got to tell you, that person receiving that, if it didn't include the what was it called again? The
brioche.
Yeah. If it didn't include that, are they even going to notice? I don't know. Imagine you put it on a table and they're like, oh man, I'm so full. I can't even eat dessert. And they were like sweating in the back, like, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Well, when they showed how much of it they ended up using, I
Yes.
felt like that was really negligible, guys.
Yeah, pretty funny. And a couple of things I didn't notice until I was like taking notes and rewatching things. Just a general question for you. Did you pick up on this? There's this running theme here that no one's doing the dishes because they don't have water. So the dishes are just piling up.
Yes.
And they wash the dishes in the basement. I guess I should have known that. And that the flooding, of course, happened in the basement. And somehow in my head, I'm like, isn't all this water just pouring into like the cooking area? And I don't know, like, you know how when sometimes there's like a movie where the action sequences are really good and you know the geography of the space you're in really well. I honestly did not understand until I rewatched scenes in the show for just to take notes. Then I'm like, oh, okay, the water's downstairs. But I didn't really get that. Of course, one of the facts falls through the roof upstairs. But I mean, that giant flooding episode occurs in the basement, which of course is where the shirts are with the birth on it, where the misprinted T-shirts, etc. But I didn't really get a good geography of the place with all this chaos of the water pouring out and everything. Did you have that same sense?
Yeah, I probably had the same issue. And I'm sure I could be proven wrong because I haven't watched the prior seasons in a long time, but I don't feel like there was a big emphasis on being downstairs versus upstairs in the past seasons.
Right.
So I don't think we had that groundwork
we never
going into it.
I guess it makes sense because only now, after I did the calculation in my head, I'm like, this is true. Like we see multiple times the camera or another chef or especially since it became the bear, of us being in the kitchen area. And there's not somebody there or three people there washing dishes the whole entire time, right? Which happens all the time in the back of a restaurant. So we never see that. So I assume it's somewhere else, right? So it kind of makes sense, but it was just funny that I'm like, oh, I never really thought about the geography of the restaurant. Or if I have thought about it, not in this season, they didn't do a really good job of delineating like what room they're in when they're reacting to the flooding, etc.
Yeah.
Which they should have done a better job of, considering that this is a kind of part of the issue they're having. And I guess the other ticking clock they had here, which again, I did not process at all. If they can't wash the dishes, then they might run out of, actual serving plates and everything for the restaurant. And, even breaking a plate is a traumatic thing if you have only the exact amount of settings. So that could have been a little more well-defined, considering it is like a bit of a ticking clock. And I didn't even think about that. I was just like, man, someone's going to have a lot of dishes to do later. I didn't think about it at all until the end. They're like, oh, that probably was part of but no one's actually saying we only have so many plates left, right?
Yeah, they were showing them piling up, right? Like, yeah.
And other big things happen here. Maybe we talk about how all the characters land at the very end. But of course, early on, Sydney officially tells Tina that she's her chef de cuisine. So that's her CDC. So that was a really nice moment. And this is another short episode, right? We're back into that routine of like basically just being about the service on this day, which is like you had that question last week. Like, is that all we're going to get? Pretty much what we're going to get, other than a little bit more. And then episode number 6 is called Bamboo. And basically the night continues. Big question I have for you here. We're seeing first of all, some entertaining elements. What did you think about these people who, Richie, because of this overcrowding in the restaurant, just trying to find places for people to sit, and they're improvising constantly, and they're having people have like a tailgate party outside, and like inviting them to the tailgate to like clear them away from the table. But it is like a lot of this like Mission Impossible, not a single thing can go wrong tonight, is kind of an artificial pressure they're putting on themselves, which doesn't create the kind of terror and like actual anxiety that I had sometimes watching previous seasons of the show. And because it's just like when it's just like, oh my God, I have to distract them for one more minute so that we can clear the table. I'm like, I've been in restaurants, nice restaurants too, where they just tell us, can you hold for a minute? And you stand there for a minute while it's like, it's not always this kind of, everything has to be, I mean, I know that's what they want for this experience to be so seamless that nobody even notices when they're actually trying to delay you from getting to your table. But I'm like, okay, some of this is a little silly, to be honest. But I did you go ahead.
So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that one of these things that I thought was funny was when it's just like, well, we don't have seating for everybody. So, hey, you guys get to like eat and like be in the back and talk to the chefs. And everybody's just like, yes, that's exactly what I want. These people here, the one guy who's like very like, yes, chef. I love that one guy who's like way too into this, which is a fun detail. What were you going to say about all of that?
I do understand the point you're making, but then at the same time, there definitely were moments that were like nail biters for me. I can't recall precisely what they were. Maybe once was with the wine, the 97 versus the 99
that was
situation.
Great. Yeah, that was great.
So there was, at least for me, some tension there. And I did love the thing with the people in the kitchen. I thought that was a very fun running gag of like the guests who don't know when it's time to leave the dinner party. And they've just settled in, like they're part of the kitchen now. They're welcoming more guests into the kitchen. Like I did enjoy that.
Yeah, that was fun. And there are moments that are more thrilling in this, but I do start to sense the artificiality of some of the tension, even the wine thing, which is so much fun. I honestly think that the show very knowingly doesn't even let us know whether he was right or wrong with the wine, because the guy's like, I would know this, like, like the back of my own hand or something, this reunion that I've been waiting for. And he's like, all this pressure he's putting on himself, he has to pick the right wine. And then he's like, isn't that amazing? And the guy's like, oh, sweet. And he's like, no, it's dry. And you think it's sweet? And he's like smelling it again. And I'm like, is this guy even really a connoisseur? Or is he just,
Yeah.
So I just found it entertaining that even in that moment, I'm not certain that the show is saying this guy definitely picked the right wine because this guy's so adept at it, because he kind of is a buffoon after that moment on the show.
Well, they also think that's the critic, right? So
true.
Everything
of course,
is
yes, that's
amplified for that reason, regardless of whether anything is right or wrong. Just whether he likes it is really what matters.
That's a really good point. You know what? I'm glad you just said that, because for me, even though they think that this is the critic, that is good context setting that I didn't have in my own mind, because I was just so dead certain that this guy was not the critic. So, so it didn't have that same, but you make a really good point. Of course, if people are like, if they're all thinking, I am going to mess up service to the guy who's going to decide whether we get the Michelin star or not, then of course, that's an incredible amount of stress. And that is very important, because I was like the whole time being like, they're so wrong about this. This is not this guy. And everything, like every goofy thing that happens there after was like, pretty much confirming it for me. I do like, and this is probably towards the pretty late in the going, I don't remember exactly which episode this happens in. And we have to talk about the facts again. So much of this kind of side story didn't work for me in these episodes, and I keep trying to like really cram these guys down my throat to make comedy out of this. But who's the one guy? Nat, is that what he calls himself? The one guy who comes out with his hands out, and they're like, oh no, what is he going to do? And then he just starts telling stories about himself and explaining where his tattoos came from.
Yes.
And all of that was actually really sweet. So that's where, and especially with that actor who's not a professional actor, he's actually a chef, but he's now a professional actor, I guess. But I thought that was a lot of fun. So that's the good way to use them. But what did you think about that before I kind of make my criticism?
Yeah, I thought that was a good way to use them as well. Although looking back on the entire series, I probably could have done without these characters for the most part, but it was a good use of them.
Yeah, and there's a place where they did use it well. And I've said this in all of, we've covered this entire series from season 1. So repeatedly, I'm like, man, I'm really on the outs with the facts, and then I'm on board with them again. And in general feel like the show and the people who created the show, run it, etc., are way more in love with these characters than I am, and maybe than general audiences. So that's an interesting tension that they have there. However, I do think that thematically it means something, right? Like they are these chaos agents in season 1, where it's like Richie's spinning out and the sandwich shop is falling apart. And then the facts are like bouncing off of each other. And it's like all this chaos, just chaos and more chaos. And in a way, it's like that they're gremlins. I was thinking about Gremlin because of the agents we're watching now, but just a character is called Gremlin there too. But it made me think about the concept of a gremlin, like something that's like in the works that's messing things up. And they're like that. They're like the gremlins on the show, but they have been tamed to some extent. Like even they've been put to a more positive use. So I think that's how we're supposed to see them. But I don't know, like it's like you said, like as far as like the seasoning for this, the recipe that is the show, it's like less of that particular ingredient. Yeah. And by the way, if that does work, and honestly, even the interactions with his brother or his cousin, whoever the other guy, that they're always side by side, those two guys are not, Ted might be the other guy's name.
I don't know, man.
I can't remember either. They're just one of the facts. But that their dynamic doesn't always work for me. He's my favorite of them, and they've given him the most to do. But then you have yet another fact who's going around, and this whole storyline with the computer and Richie trying to get the air rights, and other than like the bureaucratic nightmare of that one scene, which was hilarious, and we've all been there in some way or another, dealing with that type of bureaucracy. Other than that, like the whole like, is Richard in the kitchen and whatever that was with the crazy aunt. And they dedicated a significant number of one particular episode. And I really was sitting there every time they would cut back to them to just have some kind of parallel action, thinking to myself, like, is this how I want? Like, it's episode 7 or something. I'm like, is this what I want to be doing in episode 7 of the show with like one episode to go? So how did that whole storyline look for you?
The air rights to the franchise, that what you mean, the whole evolution of it?
Just all that, like them going around trying to come up with a solution, ending up at the aunt's house, like whatever her name was, the crazy lady who lives there.
Mary something. Yeah.
Mary, whatever her name was. And just that whole storyline. How did that work for you?
I feel like I didn't mind the cheese character, but I feel like it was too late to introduce a new character. Although it was fine, like the amount of time we spent with her was a reasonable amount of time considering she was new. I did feel there was something weird about her acting choices.
Yeah.
I don't really know what it was, and I don't consider myself someone who can really tell good acting from bad acting. To me, this was weird acting. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it is. There's a lot of almost improvisational nature too, especially these people who kind of show up for one scene or whatever. And I think that the people who make this show like love actors. They like love these actors getting a little too hammy in their performances.
Maybe.
And yeah, I think that this is probably somebody who shows up and they're probably doing some improvisation, and they're just structuring a scene around that improv, and she gets to define her character to it. So I think that's kind of what you're seeing there, that she's just doing shtick, basically, right? And that's where it doesn't feel like it's very well thought out. And you say that it was fine. I actually didn't think the comedy landed very well. And I also thought that, like you said, why are we introducing another character? And if it was, like in my mind, I'm like, well, this is all so that eventually they convince her to rescue the family and sacrifice what she needs to do. And like she gets part ownership of the restaurant or something so that they can save the restaurant. Then there will be some payoff to it. But the idea that in the end, it's just another excuse for Jimmy to be like, I don't want to keep running a restaurant. I don't want a franchise. And in the end, it's like, okay, we're down to one thing. You got to do the franchising. I'm like, isn't that what was proposed to Jimmy all the way back in the final episode of last season? Like, it just seemed like a long way to go to just draw this out.
She had to validate it as a good plan using her business acumen.
Well, no, I mean, she would have had to, she holds the rights to the air rights, right? So I mean,
the character cheese.
Oh, you're thinking about cheese. I'm talking about, yeah, I guess cheese. I was talking about the woman who owns the rights to the
No, I've been talking about the cheese character this whole
cheese
time.
character. Okay. I was talking about the Mary.
She was
Mary,
just
yeah.
in that one scene, right? So
It
that
just seemed like a
was-
lot
yeah.
of real estate to dedicate to this character when there's really nothing. Just the setup of it and all of it
Fair.
is just chasing their own tail to eventually come back to where we were at the end of last season to franchise the restaurant, which is where we end up in the end.
Right. So that's, well, like we've been talking about two different people this whole time, but I think that was really the purpose that she served, was identifying all the terrible problems and then finding the business plan and convincing everyone that this was the best route. So what seemed like maybe a pie in the sky idea, she validated it as the best option.
Yeah, this is as far as cheese. Yeah, so that's where having our two separate conversations
Yes.
kind of come together, because in the end, yeah, cheese does pick up the spoon, all from
Mhm.
the spoon trick, and but she's not the spoon thief. We do find out who the spoon thief was, and
Yes.
and in the meantime, stumbles upon Ibrahim's business plan, and it's a good business plan, franchising. This
Yeah.
circles back to, by the way, that conversation you mentioned in the first set of episodes, where they're talking about the miracle of consistently good food from McDonald's, questionable if
Yes.
that's true or not.
Mhm.
But the idea, of course, the franchising, right? That's the whole thing.
Yeah, whether you like it or dislike it, it is always the same, right?
That's true. All over the world.
So I do also enjoy the computer character. So I didn't mind spending that time with him, at least.
You know who that is, right? You watched Billions, right?
Yes.
That's
but a
the
long time ago.
that's the writer and creator of the show Billions.
Okay.
Koppelman, I forget his first name.
Yeah, I know what you mean now. I didn't remember it while I was watching, but yes, I did on some level know that.
So then, of course, there's all this drama. The final serving. Oh my God, we sat everybody down. It's very interesting how everything thinned out at the exact same time. They have this giant party going outside. There's like 70 people out there that get shoving the people out from inside the restaurant to outside. And I assume just people coming by and settling in. Maybe they did Coke or not. We're not certain, depending on who different seeds. Seems like they're either are going to do the Coke or not going to do the Coke. But I do like the fact that when they're like announcing that it's like, it's our last setting, everybody. We're down to our last table. And there's also like two people outside. So it's like, you guys timed it perfectly to kind of shuffle them off. Or at least maybe they just ran out of extra beers or whatever they're giving the guy.
Yeah, I also logistically, or maybe it's not logistics, I had questions about this plan to just keep making the servings smaller and smaller. Like, at
Exactly.
some point, aren't people going to say, I'm still hungry. This is not enough food.
We'll just smear it with tuna and mayo. And that's
Although
it.
the short portion did look like a lot, actually. But maybe they just put it on a really small plate. I don't know. It just seemed wild to me that they were like, well, the answer is to just give everyone less food, because you do eat at a restaurant for the experience, but you also want to not be hungry when you leave.
And I guess an important point to bring up with all this and in the final serving and in the final plating is the fact that, of course, like as a full transition from Carmy's menu to Sydney's menu, that he is saying, and we saw him, by the way, when he's scoffing down her ribs earlier, like tasting the sauce, he goes back for a second dip. So he really likes this dish that she's come up with. And he, of course, plates the ribs with the what is it called? What's the sauce again called?
The ribs, we went over this last time, Victor.
No, not the ribs. The
ribs are with the Coca-Cola sauce. The lamb is with the tomato sauce.
Tonato. That's what I was looking for. Thinking about tomato. So the tomato sauce. So he's plating that, thinking it's for the critic, and breaks the plates. And it's like, oh my God, we don't have enough. And I guess they still have lamb, but they have to give it to everybody. I mean, that would be weird if they give.
I know. I had questions about this too. Like, isn't it the type of place you could be like, they did that special course for that one couple.
Right.
So isn't it the type of place you could be like, oh, everyone gets an individualized experience.
Right. Exactly. And I guess Sydney was saying that they're going to cut the meat even thinner. So maybe this was like the last full plating, like you described. I'm guessing because I was a little confused as well to be like, couldn't they have just given that and then,
Right. And there was still one perfectly good one, right? Like it was, I have logistical questions about all of this.
A lot of logistical questions on a lot of the plates. Again, the idea that this order of complexity that they've kind of imposed on themselves, which of course is what the show's about to some extent, but also the idea that, oh my God, I messed that up. And it's like, okay, well then make another one for them. And then if it was me, I would still, everyone around them would get the same dish so it looks consistent. And then on the other far corner, give them something else. Be like, we got a special dish just for you guys,
Right.
I mean, they gave pizzas or something from the local shop one time in an earlier season of the show, right? Like you come up with some alternative. Anyway, regardless, it's again this artificial, situation they've put themselves into, and all the setup there being, of course, that they still got the ribs from the family meal, and they're going to do Sydney's signature. Not her signature dish is actually the scallop, so it's like another dish of hers. And he's like, that's the best thing. It's better than anything I've ever made. So that's a big thing he's saying, of course.
No, I believe that, and this I only know from online because I am not a bear super fan. The scallop is the dish that she had eaten at Carm's restaurant,
right?
A different restaurant in New York, I think. And so anytime the scallop grapefruit situation gets brought up, it's like about that dish that she had when Carm made it for her.
Which was she says was her favorite.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And he says to her, that's the best dish.
Yes.
We're going to serve that instead. And of course, that's a big deal, right? This whole Michelin star. But of course, I have to say that as pretty, as touching as that is, that for him to officially pass the baton to her, which maybe is, I guess, now that I'm talking myself into it a little bit, is kind of what he's trying to convey to her, because even at the end of last season, she's like, we're not announcing this yet. Are you for real about this? Like, there's a lot of skepticism. There's no actual money.
Yes.
So like, it's easy to say I'm a partner when there's no money involved. So there's a lot of skepticism about whether he's actually giving up control or not. And then when he's like saying, well, here's my chance for this Michelin star, this thing I've been obsessing about for 4 seasons now. And now we're going to go and, say, no, your dish is the one that's going to be presented, and even say that it's not because we have no other alternative, but because that's the best food we make. So that's obviously a huge moment there, of course, as well.
But again, on the logistics, they have that much short rib left?
They have so much left over, apparently, yes.
I don't get it, man.
It also seems, and that's just me nitpicking now, it also seems that when they make the family meal, it's much more casual in the way it's presented. And then they're like, fire them all, right? And it doesn't seem like it's just the ribs they had during dinner. It's like there seems to be, I mean, I guess these are professionals. They could probably pretty that up pretty quickly. Like we've seen Carmy, just take something and make it look high end in seconds, right? So it could be just all techniques. I won't be critical of that.
I did love the opportunity for Tina to make the Brussels sprouts.
Yes, of course. Another key point. And they had a lot of Brussels. Again, the family meal, right? So this is the whole idea. Again, talking about thematics here, and we'll get into a lot of the themes at the end of this whole show. It's all about they are a family now, right? Like that's the whole point that, Tina has talked about it, that it's hard. It's great to have a job that pays well and that you're appreciated, but then to like actually get to work with family every day, or this found family, right? And that's really what this is all about. And of course, they are now making the family meal for their customers. So it's like the family's just extending further. Marcus, how is everything that happens with Marcus's dad there? There's kind of hesitant acceptance there. The dad obviously is trying to reconnect with him. I thought that was actually very sweet. And of course, he's been so nervous this whole time about making a good show for his dad.
Yeah, he picked a fight with Luca. They got into it.
Yeah, it got ugly. And they fixed it up quickly, though. Again, this is and this is, again, talking about themes here. I think it's very important that Carmy's been like taking the back seat, but has actually helped in, when she gets stuck, he has stepped in and been like, I can do this. I have a solution. He came up with a tomato sauce solution for the ribs, not the ribs, I'm sorry, the chops, the lamb chops, right? Lamb chops?
Lamb, yes.
Lamb, just lamb.
I don't know if it was a lamb chop or not. I don't really eat lamb. I have no idea. But
I forget when it's on the bone, what they call that. I don't know, whatever. It's with the lamb, yes.
a
The lamb
pork
dish.
chop is usually on the bone, if that's helpful at all. Yeah.
And so he's come in and he's helped when asked for. And when she gets stuck, but he's been supportive and he has not let things get toxic. But repeatedly here, you see like the fight break out with Luca and they're able to contain it. And then they repair things. This is so stressful, even more stressful than the end of season 3, was it? When they had that really tense service, which is actually turns out to be the one they got the Michelin star for, by the way. But meanwhile, they were all, this is like a tease for what we saw here. They were all, I should say, Carmy was locked in the freezer and he was out of the way and they performed that great service without him. He took that all on himself and got really toxic and yelled at everybody and also yelled at himself and got angry. It's because he was in a relationship. He took his eye off the ball. And that's why he forgot to like get the door fixed. And he says it here repeatedly that if he was in charge, he would have made things worse. Right. And he says it, and that's what he says that when he interviews with Bonnie Hunt at the architectural firm, but he says it directly to Sydney at one point where Sydney's screaming outside and he goes, what happened? And she says, I had to scream. And you heard that? And he goes, I think everybody heard that. And she goes, oh, that's like so embarrassing. And he goes, don't feel bad about it. If it was me, I would have yelled at them. So that's, again, the idea that, now this is a change of the way the restaurant runs, and the restaurant runs better with him taking a diminished role.
And that's very self-aware of him also.
Yeah. So that is a very important and maybe even arguably profound revelation for him, at least, and maybe what the show is trying to get around. So we get to the end of the episode, or I should say we get to the final episode, and this episode's called The Original Beef of Chicagoland, which of course is the original name of the restaurant. Carmy's not been answering this phone the whole entire time. I have a question for you because I don't understand this. You got to tell me. He's dodging this phone call and he's dodging it like, oh, it's just potential spam or something. But early on, someone says, why are you not answering that call? And he says he doesn't want to answer the call because he's like running away from it or something. But I was like, oh, does he think he's dodging a call from Claire Bear or something? But it's not that. It is, I honestly don't know. Who does he think he's dodging that call from? He doesn't think it's the Michelin guy, does he? Why is he not answering the call? So my question.
Yeah, I just saw it as one of those anxiety type things. Like certain people don't open the mail because they just don't want to deal with it, essentially. Not because they really think, not because they're expecting something terrible to come in the mail, but it just feels like a lot for them. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I just took it as one of those things. Like he already is overloaded and whatever is behind that unknown call, he's not willing to face, not ready to face what it is.
I was wondering if it was, it seemed like he was dodging a specific call. And then that was just very confusing to me because I didn't understand and if he had just answered the call earlier, but then I also played that out. If he answered the call earlier and already knew they had the Michelin star, then they probably would have taken it easier that night. They could have even been like, sorry guys, we had flooding tonight. We have to close the restaurant down or something. And then he would maybe not have had this epiphany, or maybe he would have had it on a separate day. I don't know. But how do you play that out in your mind? Like he answers the call right away. Who is this? Oh my God, we got 2 Michelin stars, guys. Let's close down the restaurant and celebrate. What do you think?
Well, I'm sorry if you address this. Is this guy the same guy that Sugar said was trying to reach him?
I don't know.
Do you remember that conversation?
Oh, yeah. No, it is. Yes, because yes, it is. Yes.
So
that's
maybe,
the question, right?
Yeah. So I'll be honest. I was checking the World Cup score and Mbappe scored a goal, I think. So sorry. Wanted to see what experience my family was having. So I got a little distracted, but
It's halftime. We can record. We try to wrap up during halftime.
No. It's okay. It's just I saw that someone had scored and I was like, wait, what happened? So
It is popping. Yeah.
I'm happy they at least got to see a score. Although I guess at this point they go to penalties anyway at the end. So it would be very exciting if it was 0-0. But neither here nor there in the world of the bear. So yeah, I think everything was kind of coming to that point for him, right? Because I think it was before then that Sydney asks, what are you going to do next? And he says, I'm not ready to tell you yet.
Right.
But it feels like he understood that he was reaching that point of actually physically walking away. And this is part of like tying up the loose ends.
I mean, that's the only theory I have as well, is that was that call about having the interview at the architectural firm, and maybe he
thought that was what it was and he wasn't ready yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I'm just like, when Sugar tells him that someone's been trying to reach him and he's not, and they called at the restaurant and he's dodging the call. If he knew that that person was, related to Michelin rating at all, if the name rang a bell, then why would he be dodging his call? Like, anyway, and on the one hand, you could be like, oh, maybe it's because he didn't want to know whether he got the star or not. It's like, no, they think the guy's coming tonight. So none of it made any sense to me.
Right. No, that is a good point. That why would they be calling before that? Because those calls have been going on for days, right?
Right.
So yeah, that doesn't really track. That's true.
But let's for whatever logic of that, it could just be his own neuroses. But what do you think about the theory that they get the Michelin star announcement and they'd be like, wow, like we are going to be even more famous now. And we could, we won't make any money tonight. And that's a problem considering they need money to pay everybody's. But if you just want 2 Michelin stars, you're going to be like, wow, we could take a day off and get the kitchen repaired and then do it right tomorrow, because we are reopening tomorrow as the Bear in Chicago with 2 Michelin stars. Right. And so it's just interesting to play that out and think that how everyone's life trajectory might be a little bit different given how those circumstances change. Although, I mean, Carmy still goes, well, I have a question as to what he goes through with at the end, given the fact that they get those Michelin stars. But
I have a question. Well, I mean, this is really jumping to the end, but architecture is a lot of math. How can he just jump in as an intern without that background?
I mean, I guess theoretically he can go and get take that classes. I mean, just because he can draw really well, it seems like an odd jump.
Yeah, it didn't track for me.
I mean, there is some architectural work that is just like conceptual drawing. It's just, and then that becomes but it seems like you don't just do that. That's like a skill you might have where you just want to have kind of what he does, where he puts something on the board so he can look at it and invent or come up with a recipe based on this visual or get inspired by it. So that is something that happens with, almost like having a mood board for when you're designing something. But that's first of all, that's not like doing a generic suburban home that is, that's pre-built, prefabbed, most of it. That's very high-end architecture. And again, that's not usually, you wouldn't hire someone just to do that. They would be a full-on architect and have that skill as well. But he is a celebrity of a kind, right? So maybe,
I guess,
they'll have a write-up in the newspaper when he joins the firm, and that's good for publicity. All right, let's talk where everybody lands and leave Carmy last, because I'm not sure what the show is saying. Okay, Sydney gets the restaurant. Nice scenes between her and her dad, by the way. Always happy to see Robert Townsend, yeah. And she has developed her confidence. She now gets to make her own food. Carmy was this inspiration for her. If we want to talk broadly what happens in the show, he obviously inspired her to want to be a chef. She gets to work with him. She gets to see the type of person she doesn't want to be. And then he steps aside and lets her rise up. So it's she has a full arc, as the hero in a way of the show. And so everybody gets a happy ending, by the way. How do you feel about that? Everybody gets a happy ending.
I like that for this kind of show. I want it to be a feel-good type of thing at the end. I will say for Sydney specifically, And I actually really enjoyed every season of this show, by the way. I feel like I'm being a little bit critical, but
Yeah.
I actually, like, my takeaway is that I really enjoyed everything about this show. But I would have liked it, or maybe the fault lies with me. Maybe I don't recall it. I feel like it's kind of like a switch flipped and she became a good leader.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they built up to that by showing her shining in certain moments, even though she was doubting herself, and then finally fully accepting that position. It more just felt like it went from 0 to 100. And that to me, I didn't love. But maybe the fault is with me. Maybe I missed it. And they have been planting those seeds all along.
No, I actually agree with what you're saying. And I want to preface all of this. I should have probably prefaced early on that, as you can probably guess from the criticisms I've been making throughout, I do think this is a pretty weak season of the show. Although people are very happy about it, I actually thought it was one of the weaker seasons of the show. And I
think it could have been half as long. I think
for sure.
I think they should have. I think maybe people would not have had a great reaction to it, but I think it could have been a really beautiful 4 episodes.
Yeah, I think about, maybe in a way tainting my whole opinion of this was how much I liked the Gary episode. And we touched on it in the previous episode, our discussion, that it kind of opened the world up for me for what the show could be, having these like side stories. And I honestly, in my own mind, would have had a bunch of side stories that kind of culminate into maybe like one episode, like everybody kind of comes together to do like one big important meal of some kind. That would have worked better for me than this kind of like, again, just repeating so many things that we've seen before. But of course, now this time people aren't yelling at each other. And even as bad as things get, like it's never been worse than before. Instead of being like, you guys are creating these pulling knives on each other and stuff and getting to fights in the back of the restaurant and everything's falling apart because of your toxic dynamic. Instead, it's like it's raining and everything's going wrong and you're overbooked on your seats. And like literally it's like plagues, God's is judging them or something. It's like a supernatural bad night. And still they come together and they succeed. And I'm like, okay, I understand that, but I got that in a previous season of the show as well. So I really feel like it's just playing the hits again.
Okay, but I know we already got to the end and everybody's character arc, but there's 2 things I want to revisit.
Yes.
If that's okay.
Please.
So the penultimate episode, the one with the actual service.
Yes.
First, I want to say it was so beautiful to watch.
Yes.
Like,
true.
I felt it was really beautifully shot. A lot of the scenes of just the food were really gorgeous. And so I just really enjoyed that on an aesthetic level. And I loved the Didi character in that episode.
Why? What was?
I just thought it was a really great way to finish out a character that has been like a roller coaster ride. The whole show is a roller coaster ride.
All right. Got it.
But her specifically. But I thought Jamie Lee Curtis did an amazing job with reflecting how odd she was to be in this restaurant finally, right? Because she couldn't bring herself to go in on opening night, remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
She was just outside. She felt like she didn't deserve to be there, kind of. And you could see how happy she was to be there, how amazed she was looking through the books. I love the scenes with the flashbacks of when Carmy was like learning the things and seeing the things and constructing the dishes that he was writing about, and her appreciation for that, and her actually staying out of the way and doing what was requested of her.
Yes.
And just taking care of the baby and taking it all in, and her appreciativeness and gratefulness and like just gratitude to be in that space with her kids. I loved all of that.
I'm so glad you circled back to that. And I think you had another thing you wanted to bring up. We can.
No, it was just how pretty it was, how lovely it was to watch it all.
Yes. So I completely agree with what you were saying. I'm so glad you circled back to that because I forgot to bring that up. But those scenes, so beautiful, like you said, also having her at first when, of course, we're like, oh my God, she's coming and it's raining and this is going to set
what
everybody
are
up.
you doing?
You're just waiting for like that. The dominoes are going to start falling. And instead it's like, oh my God, we have like forced her out of the restaurant. And of course she hasn't wanted to be in the restaurant because it reminds her of Mikey, and Mikey was always her favorite. Something we find out here. We kind of suspected it anyway. We explicitly have it brought up in these episodes of the show. And then I loved her going through his book and being like, oh my God, look at all the places
so
you've been to, all the things. And of course, again, it's like this whole purpose of this show is like we are playing the hits again, not necessarily in a bad way, but we're like hitting on all the beats from before. And Carmy's doing that as well, right? That's part of him. He's revisiting his own life. Again, like I mentioned in our first conversation, that it's like he's haunting the premises. And by the way, he starts to emerge in a different form now. Like in the first batch of episodes, he barely speaks. And then there's like, he starts doing his apologies in episode 4. But now it's like, he at first is just like, oh no, you go ahead, Sydney, you go ahead. And he accidentally speaks up and he's like, no, you do it. And then he eventually starts being like, I got a solution. And so it's like, he's finding that he does have a place there, even if it's not the role he envisioned for himself.
Right.
And I think that is the big thematic. I'm going to save this for the end, but might as well just get to it now because we are the last episode. I think the big thematic, place that this is going to is exactly that, is that you may have an expectation, I had a career, I spent this money, I traveled the world, I did this, I'm good at this, I won awards, and you are just like more, and you're pushing. And that for him to be able to kind of like let go and then find himself being in a different role and then being happy in that role. And then that's kind of, I think, what the show is saying, like, right. It ends with him like exhaling. That's basically how the whole episode ends. And of course, sending a text to Mikey saying all good. Right. And I think that's where we've been going. And this goes right back to what I was starting to say, which is I have so many criticisms of this particular season of the show. And yet I want to make sure that I am clear that I was happy to see these people again, which I love these characters. So more of these characters are always something I'm going to be okay with, and if they wanted, like, for example, next year, just do a one-off movie, like a 1-hour episode, I'd love to see them again, right? Like I'm totally on board with anything they want to do with these characters. I did think the shape of the season was a little weird, but I do love that is where the show is coming from, right? That like these people have become a family. They've dealt with this horrible trauma. They've lost Mikey. They've healed. And of course, Carmy being our main character here that we've tracked this whole entire time, for him to be able to let go and be happy in letting go is a huge step forward for him when he has been running from everything else in his life and has been using this ambition as a way to run away from everybody else.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting too that when he's talking to Sydney about the Michelin star, he keeps saying to her, you did it, you did it.
Right. But that does minimize what he did, because these people would have people would have never done more than the beef sandwich shop, which ironically is going to be what makes this business succeed in the future is the beef sandwich shop, the franchise of it. But regardless, you would not have a 2-star Michelin restaurant if it had not been for him driving them to that. And of course, despite the fact that he was locked in a freezer that whole entire night, it was his menu and it was his team that had been prepped aggressively by him that did get those Michelin stars.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, the show is saying that is not that's not healthy and it's not sustainable. And and I think it's actually beautiful that it lands with that. And again, I think that I'm glad you brought up Didi. I think that circles back to that as well. There's this level of like, when we're talking about the sustainability of these characters, it's not just in their ambition at the restaurant, it's just how they live their lives. And like sometimes you have to let things go, something that Didi obviously could never do. And she can now, right? She's accepting being a different role in her life, just being a grandmother and just supporting her family. And it was really beautiful.
Yeah, I do think with these mental health issues, this isn't the end of the road for the relationship with Didi.
Right.
The other shoe is going to drop, but it was a really
sure.
great night.
She's well medicated that night. So we'll see how it goes from that point on. Richie has never flown before. He gets this opportunity to go to this conference in Japan. He finally made a move. Although I don't even know if he made the move. Maybe she made the move.
It's a little unclear, yeah.
But she is there. She's there on the plane with him. So it does look like he's finally going to have a girlfriend. Tina, of course, gets the chef de cuisine, the bear. That's a big moment for her. Marcus, of course, just won Rising Chef of the Year already, like hugely prestigious, and is still working at the restaurant. Luca goes back to Denmark. And that's, sweet that, Marcus was kind of, that's, kind of unexplained here, I guess, other than his relationship with his dad and trying to make amends there. That, of course, he was partially lashing out at Luca, A, because he didn't want him to leave, and B, because this was kind of like the animosity that he had against his dad. And he was like, misdirecting it at Luca. Natalie's a co-owner at the restaurant. Uncle Jimmy now is in the restaurant business again, whether he likes it or not. This is where his money's going to come from. And apparently he's broke. So now he's got to hope that the bear and the beef are very financially profitable, because that's where the money comes from. We see Claire for a minute. Why did Claire have like no screen time this whole entire season? It was surprising to see like that whole final moment where you see the whole birthday party and you see Oderkirk. It's like at first I'm like, they couldn't get the cast together. But it's weird that they all show up.
John Mulaney shows up in the last,
They're all there, but not
Well, to be honest, right before I started this last episode, I thought to myself, I'm happy they got rid of that whole Claire character romance situation. There's already enough going on. So I was fine with it.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I wanted to see a romance for the whole entire season, but for her to not speak a word to him, although it is implied that part of his recovery now would be, it's not that she's just there, it's him and her interacting. So yes, there could be a future for them, and he can maybe have a healthy relationship with her now. But my point is, like, it's all inferred because these people just show up for a cameo at the end.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, so here's my last point on this, which I find really odd. What do you think? Let me just start with a question. What happens to Carmy after this episode ends?
Feels like he's going to move to New York and be an architecture intern.
Do you think that that's true?
I don't think it makes sense.
The reason I ask you that is because everything I've read is that he's going to pursue this architecture career. That's basically, I have not heard anyone refute that in any way. As a matter of fact, I think the Christopher Storer, the creator of the show, has pretty much stated that as well. But I didn't read that at all, because what I read is he has the interview with Bonnie Hunt, and
he talks so much about his life in the restaurant.
Right. And then how he said that it was so stressful and everything else, but he had never been more happy. And then the last time we see him, he's in an office. Like, it doesn't look like he's in the back of the bear. I don't know where he is, to be honest. I don't know if that's maybe that's in his apartment, and I just haven't seen his apartment before, but I don't really know where he is. It doesn't look like he's in the back of the bear, but maybe he is, because there's all these books on the shelf, and then he's got all his, recipes, the artwork from his recipes on the wall that he's looking at. But he's in the apron and in the, wearing the t-shirt, which is the usual outfit for when he's cooking. So I was like, to me, I think he has had to have that opportunity to change direction, and that's how he used to be, right? Everything was like all or nothing. You have to give 110% or it's not worth it at all. And that's how he was. And that includes being like, well, if I can't be like, have 2 Michelin stars or whatever, I'm just going to quit the restaurant business, which of course he's achieved now. But maybe the real point is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. He can actually be happy just in that role among these other chefs at this restaurant. And that's how I read it, because I don't get that final scene where he's in his apron. That means that he quit his job. It doesn't seem, I don't get that. I don't understand how that's the reading that everybody's been having, but maybe I'm wrong about that. It seems to be like unanimously. I don't think anyone has said otherwise, but I don't read it.
You
that
make
way.
a fair point, though. I don't know. Just poor editing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just very odd. And it even goes back to what I was saying, like thematically, right? Is that he has to let go to. So the point is that for him to be psychologically healthy, it's not that he has to not do this thing anymore, which he loves, and he's rediscovered that he loves it. And and again, I just think about, like you talk about bad editing, I think about what we actually see in that final episode. And there's, maybe it was episode 7, when he goes to the front and he goes to talk to Richie, and he just looks around the room and it goes, oh, it's beautiful here.
Yeah.
And Richie's like, yeah, it always looks like this, basically. And he says, thank you. And he's like, oh no, I just never looked at it because I was always so caught up in whatever I was doing. And then Richie gets emotional hearing that. But again, it seems to be not that he's like, and now I have to quit this, but it's just like, because he was able to take a step away, he can now appreciate it, right? And that doesn't seem to be like, now I want to quit. So I don't know. I don't think, even though he goes on that interview, but of course, very importantly, during that interview, all he talks about is how much he loves cooking. So I don't see that as being the logical conclusion.
When I found out it was I actually thought, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, go ahead.
I had thought his next step was going to be to write a book about all of his experiences. And even the conversation with John Mulaney made me think that, because he's talking about being haunted is good because, you have all these stories and whatever. And so when the closing of the whole thing was, what does that have to do with architecture? I was kind of like, yeah, what does that have to do with architecture? Because I was already seeing it through the lens of pitching a book, which honestly, I don't think it was a very good pitch for a book either. But it's an even worse pitch for let me be your architecture intern.
Yes, I completely agree. Yeah, it's just really strange. Like, I did not understand.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. I was so confused by it. And maybe this is why, but I'm going to say maybe this is why where the confused reaction is, but I don't see a confused reaction. I have literally read a review that was, the day that the episodes dropped, they finished the binge. There was like where all the characters landed. And there's a popular website I was looking at. It's like my newsfeed. And I click on it and shows where it happens to everybody. And it's like Carmy leaves and goes to this architectural internship. And I'm like, really? And then I'm like, I didn't read it that way. And then basically every other opinion I looked for all said the same thing. And I'm like, that's not how I read the ending.
Yeah, interesting.
So very confused by that. Also, again, I'm just looking at reading what the show shows us. It's not showing us that he lets go of cooking forever and he's happy. He says he experienced cooking not as the captain of the ship, but just on the ship and reacting to the circumstances. And it was thrilling. It was the most fun he ever had in his life, he says, right? And I'm going to go become an architectural intern? Those two things don't make sense to me, basically.
Yeah, I totally hear everything you're saying. And I think those are all valid points. So I don't know how to reconcile them.
And maybe it's supposed to be open-ended. We don't know where he's going to find the thing that makes him happy and he's going to do that, which is a healthy way to read it. I just see that scene. I rewatched that scene, by the way. And I don't think the point of that is to be and I never want to cook again.
Right.
He's like, maybe, I really want this job, but all I think about all day is cooking. I'm
maybe you're supposed to think, although I don't know why you wouldn't have read this if this was the case, but maybe you're supposed to think that he then feels the pull of getting back into the kitchen, and that's where he will eventually end up again.
Yeah, that is exactly how I read it.
It said. So,
right. Yeah. That's exactly how
I could see it being, right now he's an architecture intern, and that's making him realize that no, he really did have a passion for cooking apart from all of the baggage that went with it.
Right.
So, but that's not what you read. So it doesn't really track.
And maybe I haven't read enough. Maybe there is ambiguity in how people are reading it. I just didn't find any of those takes, which was really shocking to me. So I'm like, that's not how I read that ending of that show at all. to the point that I had to go and research it because when I'm reading this article about
Right.
and then that was like another article I read about just the final episode, and they're like, so then in the end, Carmy becomes an architecture intern. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not what happened. He goes on an interview. That's not what happened there. But anyway, maybe I'm the only one who read it that way. Anyway, anybody out there who agrees or disagrees with me, send us an email. needsomeIntroduction@gmail.com. All right, son, I had a few questions for you. So we've come to the end of this whole thing. Do you have, in retrospect on the show, actually, let me start with your favorite character. Who was your favorite character on the show?
Okay, wait. Can I say something else before we get there?
Please do.
Let me take us back 5 steps again when
Sure.
I should have interjected earlier. Well, I want to know, okay, 2 things, both relating to Ibra. What did you think of that opening scene of the final episode with him sitting on the park bench?
And I don't know what
Smoking the cigar.
And him, I think he is trying to psych himself up to have the conversation with Carmy. By the way, another point too, of like Carmy's out of the business, but Carmy has to sign off on this. It seems like an interesting situation.
I wondered about that
Sydney?
too. Yes.
Ask Sydney, right? Why does it just say ask Sydney? Ask Sugar.
When Ibra finds out about Carmy resigning, then he throws the proposal onto the shelf or whatever. So you'd think he was like, okay, well, there's no point in doing that because he's out. But then by the last episode, they're talking, or next to last episode, whenever it happened, they're workshopping what he's going to say to Carmy. So that to me was strange. Again, logistical questions.
I feel exactly the same way. I've had so many questions about that as to like, why are they all going to Carmy? Why wouldn't, if he's like trying to make this pitch, why wouldn't he just make it to Sugar? She's the business person. He'll show her the numbers. She's going to see that spreadsheet just like cheese and be like, oh, absolutely. That's, let's do that. That's how we make money. But he's like, nope, I'm shelving this. All of that seems so odd because it's like in his mind is like, I won't be able to convince him to sign off on this. I'm like, aren't you saying he's leaving the company, like the whole bear? Like none of this make any sense. Honestly,
very weird.
Very confusing.
And I also thought that opening scene was just weird, which is the reason I brought it up. But also, I did love, and I want to know if you picked up on this. We had talked about how the Rob Reiner character obviously cannot be present. And so he is here by phone, right? We see Ibra talking to him on the phone a couple times.
Right.
And then did you notice the last thing he says to this Rob Reiner character on the phone, Adam, I think his name was, I'm not sure, is As You Wish.
As You Wish from Princess Bride.
I thought that was
sweet.
very, very sweet.
A little call out too for if you say
exactly. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay. Now, favorite character. That's where we left things.
Yes.
It's hard for me to pick, but I think I'm going to say Tina.
I do like Tina. Yeah, that's a good one.
What about you?
The first person who jumped to my mind was Richie.
Because of course. Yeah.
And this is just my personal taste as well. Like I always appreciate a movie or a TV show or whatever. And The Bear is one of these shows, by the way, where with season 1, halfway through, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to like this show. Everybody's going on and on about it. And by the end, I'm like, oh man, I love this show. Right. So like kind of like that tightrope walk when it's like, that's not how I would have done it. Cause that's the other mental illness I have. Whereas I'm watching something, I'm always like, how would I write this? And a lot of times it's like, if I come up with a better solution, I get a little annoyed with what I'm watching, which is my own problem. But same situation where someone's like, well, I wouldn't have done it that way. And then they like land the plane. I'm like, oh, they did it. And I would not have done that at all. And it worked so well, right? Like I get like extra bonus points for that. And Richie is that as a character where the performance wasn't really working for me. He was trying so hard and it's just not the type of tone that I like in that character, in that performance. And that over time, I like fell in love with the character. I was like, wow, I was not expecting that at all.
Yes.
And that was miraculous. So I'll kind of give it extra bonus points for that.
Remember that scene a couple of seasons ago, or maybe it was the last season, I don't know, where he's like rocking out to Taylor Swift in his car?
I love that. Yes. I remember like watching that for the first time and like tearing up and like thumping my fist like, yes, Richie, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I loved it.
They're definitely a fan favorite, I think. You can't not love that character by the end of this.
And I mean, there's so many grace notes. Like I also was going to ask you what your favorite episode is. And of course, that episode is probably my favorite. But you brought up Tina, and there's two Tina moments and episodes that go around her that are some of my favorite in this whole entire show. There's the one where she karaoke's that time and she's going to the restaurant.
Oh my gosh, yes.
She's so nervous about like going to school with these younger women. And then like all of a sudden she'd been this, again, speaking of someone who like, I hated this character. It was such a specific type of person, someone who can only feel like they're succeeding if they're making someone else feel bad about themselves. And the lack of self-confidence that represents in the person. It's a very specific type. And Tina is exactly that over the course of season 1. And then that she like starts to appreciate Sydney and then gets sent to this school. And then you start seeing that all of a sudden her being like, I know this place like the back of my hand. And she's like that very cocky version of herself that suddenly she's like a fish out of water, and feeling her be like timid was such an amazing performance by this actress. I forget her first name, Cologne, that she just does such a great job. And then when she karaoke's, it was like, oh my God, like all of a sudden you're seeing this whole other aspect of a person, which I love that when you see a character like in a completely different light. So I love that. And of course, love the other episode, which Ayo actually directed in last season, where we actually see that flashback episode for when she met Mikey, which is another really great episode.
Mm-hmm, that is.
No one said Carmy. Carmy gets enough. You know what? Carmy gets enough. He gets enough attention. He's the center of the show. Everyone cares about him. So, but I mean, I like all the characters. Actually.
I agree. I think with the theme of the whole thing being family, it's like all of your family members, right? There's something to laugh about all of them.
You would think.
Except for that one.
The black sheep, the family. So any other episodes you want to shout out that maybe the character who's come the furthest is, as an actor as well, is Lionel Boyce playing Marcus, which I think we all shouted him out here on the podcast. But they went from like season 1, he was like a stand-up comic and he was kind of a secondary character. Pretty important, but basically was reacting to what Carmy was telling him and showing them recipes, etc.
Trying to make ice cream.
They put and they put more and more emotional weight onto that character over time. So he's really it's very impressive to see him become so central to the show. And he was in Project Hail Mary this year, very funny in that. Any other episodes that stand out or characters?
I grew very fond of Sugar by the end.
Yes.
As well. And she was kind of like a non-entity to me for the first couple seasons, where I didn't mind her. I had no problem with her, but I didn't really care about her.
They didn't really focus the story around her either.
Yeah. Maybe since she had the baby, I don't know. I have liked her more. And I will say also in that penultimate episode, I thought she looked absolutely gorgeous. I don't know what was different there to me, but she looked really, really striking.
Lisa Cologne, by the way. I just want to make sure I call her out. Tina is played by Lisa Cologne.
I was like, that is not Sugar's name.
No. Abby Elliott is Sugar.
And her husband too was very endearing by the end.
Yeah, he never got a central story in any episode, but there is a really
nice in the beginning, everybody was so angry with him all the time for some reason.
They still treat him like he's like the biggest idiot in the world, but come on. I gotta say, there's a big fixing of kind of reputational, repair, exactly. Yeah. Where when after they have the baby, and there's that one episode where they're in bed together with the baby, and they're like, I just want to stay here with the baby all day. And there's a kind of like, we talked about it in a podcast, but like what a flashback that is to being in that exact moment where you have like just a moment of peace in that particular time of your life.
But I really did love and this has been present in the character all along. He's just along for the ride, whatever you want. He's going to try and do his best and, okay, the trash, I'm the trash guy. Let's do it. I love that. It really grew on me. It was very charming.
They just have to give him something to do, apparently.
Yeah.
But that's why Sugar loves him, because he's always trying to.
Right.
Another standout episode for me, speaking of Marcus, is when they go to Amsterdam. I think that was the first
I was
episode.
just remembering that when you were talking about the character. Yeah.
Yeah, I did love that episode. And as rough as Fishes is, that's not my speed at all. But
yeah,
that is, still is like kind of like a
that's a ride. Yeah,
it's a very impressive feat. Although once again, not exactly my favorite type of episode.
Dysregulation City. Yeah.
Oh, and maybe as far as it's funny to have you shout out Didi, because that is such a that's the type of thing probably where it's like that is not the type of performance that you dig on, but then you kind of come around to it, that by the end of the series as well.
Yeah, I think they definitely showed that she struggles with certain things, mental health issues, but she really loves her family and her intentions are generally good.
I'm just looking through the episode list, and now I'm remembering like there's probably like a 10 episode version of the show that I would watch like every year.
Greatest hits. Yeah.
And of course, I thought about the Bears episode, the wedding episode, which is such a great episode, where they're all under the table.
That was so cute.
Interestingly, I don't know if there's any one of those episodes in this particular season, except for Gary, which I love. I thought Gary was a great episode.
I thought this Penultimate, if I had $1 for every time I've said Penultimate, I thought was really good. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't think you liked it as much as I did.
I didn't like it as much because I really felt like it was, I mean, I know it's culminating, but it really felt like I'd seen all of that before. So it is kind of putting an exclamation point on it. But for me, I'm like, I feel like all these beats had been hit previously. But
yeah,
I don't hate it. And by the way, that's not to say I thought it fails as a finale. I don't think so at all. I just didn't. It just doesn't hold up to some of those other ones for me.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention?
No, just as I mentioned before, I really did enjoy this show and I enjoyed every season of it. I'm happy I watched it. I grew to love the characters. Lots of laugh out loud moments, lots of moments that made you feel for the characters. All in all, I am very happy with all of it.
Just so you know, Sona, by the way, Mbappa has scored again.
I know. This time I was able to stay focused on the conversation, but yes.
And Barcola has scored as well. So they're 3-0. So this is pretty much over.
But I think my husband and kid went in rooting for France. So I'm happy for them that they're getting to see this.
Between these two, that's the one to root for. So.
Yeah.
Unless you wanted to get your heart broken. Most likely.
Yeah. Well,
it would have been a huge win for Sweden. It would have been a huge win for Sweden.
Yeah.
France is, I think, favored to win the whole thing. So yes, we will touch base again later this week, talk about Cape Fear. And of course, in between, discussing the agency as well with Darren. So keep your eyes peeled. That episode's probably going to come sooner rather than later, considering that these were both binges, so we could record them at any time. So we'll touch base on that. Oh, and Sona, by the way, check out the agency if you have time. You get a nice 10 casual hours to watch a series of show.
Who doesn't have an extra 10 hours?
Who doesn't? Because it was really, really good. Very good.
I'm happy to hear that it was good. Did you like it more or did you like it the same or more than the first season?
It's really interesting, by the way, because I discussed this in our first conversation, that you and I were going through each episode last season, and there's like such juicy dialogue. And for me, like people thought that show was slow. But for me, the whole idea that like everybody's lying to each other and just having a meeting with your boss is like so stressful because everything is like a facade and no one can trust what anybody's saying. Just like instead of being like, why aren't people shooting at each other? I'm like, it's way more stressful to have to like maintain this facade in the front of your, these people. Like literally when he's in a room, Martian, the Fassbender character is in a room knowing that he's the mole and he's looking for the mole. Like it's so stressful, right?
That's real spycraft to me.
Exactly. And it's really so good to see that. And I was like, how is this going to work as a binge? And I mentioned this to you briefly last week as well. I don't know if they wrote the script slightly differently or not, but I couldn't wait. Like we binged, Darren and I.
Cliffhanger ending.
Yeah. Me and Darren were like, I'm up to 5, I'm up to 6, I'm up to 7. I'm like, stop at 7. So it was like really like very bingeable. But I did slow down on the last few episodes because we had like a whole week between recording. And I just have my notepad full of great dialogue, just this great dialogue and so in a way, it's like I liked the thrill of watching the story come together as a binge because it was so all available. But I do miss as well that kind of the slower pace and like really appreciating some of these interesting twists and turns, and especially some of the dialogue that was kind of missed so it's a different experience. I don't know if it was better or worse, but I think as a season, I think the season's better. As that?
Is the daughter still a character?
Oh yeah, she's still
okay.
on. Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. So yeah, check it out and let me know if you appreciate it as much as I do.
Cool.
All right, son. Thank you. Go
Thank
France.
you.
Go USA. Go Portugal.
Go money well spent. I'm just relieved. Yeah, they seem to be having a good time.
They saw some action. That's
fun
true.
game. Yeah.
All right, Sona. Thanks again for the conversation.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.